All right, what's up, everyone? Jared Couture here from Kung Fu Music Lessons, 2 cities, 1 world, hanging out with an amazing guitarist, Kaspar Jalily. Is that how you pronounce your name? Or?
Absolutely. You got it right.
Good enough? All right. Thank you so much, man. So we're going to be talking about mastery. So basically, the idea of the Kung Fu Music Lesson program is it's about really becoming a true master. Kung Fu really just means mastery through time and effort. It literally basically translates to practice. It does not mean martial arts. It's you can have Kung Fu in anything. So, but at the Shaolin Temple, the monks literally train 8 hours every day, minimum. And, you know, 20 years later, these guys become real masters and they're taking their time, like you said, like no ego, real cool. But in music, I feel it's the same. You listen to, actually there was this poster at MI at Paul Gilbert signed because he went there and he wrote, practice 1,000 hours every day. I used to go and look at that shit. I would go look at it all the time. But like Steve Vai talks about playing 10 hours a day forever. There's a 10,000 hour rule people know about. But I realized that's not totally true. You could practice sloppy for 10,000 hours and suck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And 10,000 hours isn't even that much because I'm talking about 30, 40, 50, 100,000. I'm talking about a lifetime. So anyway, this is just a quick background of the idea of the approach and what I'm trying to do with creating real masters by people spending the time through an efficient process. So that's kind of what's up with that. But I want to know what you think about it. You shared some amazing things with me. So let me get these questions rolling. So first off, I wrote a few questions here, basics. Can you just first give everybody like a quick brief intro of your musical background, like born to now?
Yeah, so I started, so my dad is a classical musician and pianist. And so I started taking piano lessons with him when I was 6 years old. And I dropped when I was about 12 or something, which is still to this day, I think, the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Oh, no.
So I didn't play music until, well, that was actually a short time, but then I picked up guitar and it was a completely different approach because it wasn't classical. I just wanted to play guitar to join my friend's band that was playing like garage rock or whatnot. So kind of like a very standard, you know, approach to electric guitar. Like I feel like most people of my generation started guitar like this, at least electric guitar. But as I was doing this, which is trying to get into my friend's band, I was, my parents signed me up for classical guitar lessons. And this was really what laid the foundation of my technique and kind of also the discipline of, you know, practicing the pieces and getting to the bottom of it. And I had an amazing teacher, as I mentioned previously. So
how old were you again when you started the classical lessons?
I think 14 something.
Okay.
So yeah, like teenager. 13, 14, something like that. And then when I graduated at, so 17 years old, I stopped, tried to get into jazz school, didn't get in. And so I took Skype lessons with some of my idols and some of the people that I was listening to a lot, all of that while kind of like gigging at the same time, more or less heavily depending on the month. So yeah, and it's been the same since, I guess, for the past, I don't know, like 7 years, basically. So just gigging, learning, constantly improving.
Cool. All right, man. So I have two questions. It's like they go together. So first off, what do you personally consider, like, how do you define a real master? What does that mean to you? And then also, who are some of your favorite musical masters?
Wow. So I guess what defines a true master, well, first of all, would be, I guess, his identity that is acknowledged. For example, you can't say, I don't know, maybe this is going to be controversial or maybe not, but you can't say, for example, B.B. King is a true technician or virtuoso of the guitar, but he certainly is a master, though, at what he does. And, you know, his voice is acknowledged and recognized as a very strong and influential voice of blues, for example, you know. Where on the other hand, some people are like, you know, insanely gifted, or I shouldn't say gifted, or, you know, are insanely skilled as far as like technique goes, but are not recognized as masters. So identity is really kind of like the deal breaker, I guess. You have to, especially in the industry right now where there's like so much around, you have to be able to make a statement with your music and really like stand out from everything that's available, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I guess.
Yeah, it's about who's what do you consider as a master? I think that is really good. And also, who are some of your favorite, like who you think are real masters? Some of your favorite musicians, you know, master musicians.
Well, there are several, you know, some guys I really like for their guitar playing, and some guys I really like for their career. You know, like, for example, someone like Sharkey, Isaiah Sharkey, I really respect. He has an amazing career and everything, but what I really love about him is his playing, because it's so unique and so polished and so, you know, it's the perfect blend between the kind of traditional R&B and gospel approach and the more modern jazz and fusion technique and flow. So this is what I really like about him. But for example, I was lucky enough to get on a gig with Lee Ritenour, who is like the legend session musician from Los Angeles. And, you know, he's amazing at so many different things. Like, he understands the business so deep. Like, I think he might be 67 now. Yeah, and he's been in the industry since he was, I don't know, like 17 something, and touring since he was like in his 20s. And the dude still has it. Like, it's not like, you know, a show where you see like one of those old legends and you can feel that they're tired and, you know, you just go because it's, you know, the legend playing. Like, he still got it. Like, he will still play his ass off in front of whoever is watching. He will really kick your butt on stage, and I've experienced that several times, just to be like, whoa, what the hell is going on? Like, I don't even understand what he's playing. It's so crazy. And at the same time, he recorded on more than 3,000 albums. So the guy is at the same time defined kind of like, without even teaching it, by being on so many recordings, he defined the sound of electric guitar throughout, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and everything. Because the dude has played on, I don't know, Aretha Franklin, to like, he even played some stuff on the Pink Floyd record. So, you know, all the legendary recordings, he's on it somewhere. He did some stuff with Benson as well. So, you know, even other guitar players were calling him to get some of his magic on there. But he's not recognized as one of the most, you know, virtuoso guitar player out there. And not that he would care at all now that I know him, but, you know, there's like, as I was saying, there's different elements. For me, Sharkey is really a true virtuoso for his playing, and someone like Lee, although he's absolutely amazing, but I feel like what's more impressive is the work that he's done and how he shaped the sound of the instrument that we play over all these years. And the thing is, maybe he has influenced people without even them knowing that they were influenced by him. And that's kind of like, you know, mind-blowing. And it's kind of like the magic of this guy's career as well, being, you know, skilled enough and blessed to be a part of like so many legendary recordings.
Yeah, I was just watching Guthrie Govan lesson, and he mentioned something about Steve Lukather in this Rosanna song, and I'm like, I've heard that song as a kid before I played music, I heard it all the time. I didn't realize like that's another guy who's played on so many, who's like influenced the sound of guitar just in the same way, for example.
Yeah.
Man,
Well, Steven and Lee are actually pretty tight. They're friends together, and I remember being in the dressing room playing a gig with Lee, and some dude just walks in, and I was warming up like that, and I was on the couch, and the neck of my guitar was kind of like in front of the door. So there's this big guy that just like grabs the neck of my guitar and just pushes it. He's like, "Oh, sorry, dude." And I was just like, keep warming up, not paying attention. I was just like, "Okay, no worries." And then I just look up, and it's actually Steve Lukather that just like entered the dressing room.
That's funny.
But yeah. The dude is a legend too. He probably has close to the same score as far as like how many sessions he's been on, because Lee mentioned that they were doing some kind of at one point during the time where it was really like popping in LA, they were doing kind of like contests of like who played the most sessions this week.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I saw Lee Ritenour in the Big Potato once. Jeff Richmond was playing, and he's there, and it was just like, oh my God, there's Lee Ritenour, so cool, man. Just in the audience with me, But anyway, that's awesome, man. Thanks for this. Let me ask you a couple more little things here. So
absolutely.
I guess basically, like, what do you think it takes just to become a master musician, And actually, I want to mix two things, because one thing I was going to ask you is like, how old were you when you began? You kind of mentioned that. How old do you consider yourself like really starting music?
Well, I guess 6 years old. I got into piano, so I would say 6 years old, because the musical training started there. I learned how to read music and that kind of stuff. So I guess this is where it started.
So what I've noticed is, because I'm just figuring out who the best are, and when I was at MI, there was like 500 guitar players there.
Right.
So I went from a school with 10, 20 guitars to 500. So try to be the top 5%. This is like really high level. It's tough. But what I saw is, I noticed everybody who was the best, like really, those people started at 3 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
It was always like that. It was always like that. So part of so I'm just figuring that, but it's not necessary. For example, like you mentioned, oh no, you didn't mention him, but I was thinking George Benson, not George, but George Levin. Who's the dude? Mr. Octaves. You know what I'm talking about?
Wes Montgomery?
Wes, I don't know why I blanked on his name, but like he supposedly started at 21,
Really? Well, I think Hendrix started at like 18 or something.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, keeping that in mind and whatever else, like what do you think it takes to become a true master anyway? Like what do you think it takes to get there?
Well, I guess the first thing would be like, don't become a master for the sake of being a master, but just because you love what you're doing so much that you just end up spending a ridiculous amount of time doing it and doing it well, if that makes sense. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is don't do it to impress, a lot of people reach out sometimes to me on social media and stuff, or would put a comment, because like the way I play, I like, and we talked about that earlier, I like really long lines. I like the fast stuff sometimes, a lot of times. And some people would say, well, this is not music. And I don't really care personally, but the thing is, a lot of people will get it wrong and think I do it to impress. And I do it because I genuinely like it. It's just like, I like how it sounds. So, I learned how to do it, and I try to do it to the best I can. Over the course of years and years of practicing it and, letting it mature also, this is how I guess you get close to mastering thing. And the thing is, guitar is also very, I don't know, it's kind of like a double edge. I would say it's very humbling and very nerve-wracking at the same time, because if you guitar has such a weird way of reminding you that you don't master it, if that makes sense. It's just like some days you feel great about it, and then the next day, for some reason, nothing is gonna work the way you want. As far as like playing is involved, and this happens to me a lot, and especially when I'm recording, some days I just don't have it. Some days it just doesn't sound right, and for some reasons the next day it sounds good. So I guess I haven't mastered that yet. I still gotta figure out what makes these days great and those other not. But you know, I don't know, there's just something about guitar that just keeps you constantly having to practice if you want to be at the top. Like we mentioned Lee earlier. Well, the dude has been playing guitar since he was like a child, and he actually took lessons with Wes Montgomery. I think like 1 or 2 lessons. Like that's, you know, how OG the guy is. And still, like, this dude has to warm up like 2 hours, like intensively before the gig. Like he would be in the dressing room like speaking, but shedding at the same time. So yeah, I guess I went off the question a little bit, but I guess what it takes is to generally like what you do, to the point that you don't even count the hours anymore. Mm-hmm. And I guess that would be the easiest way to get there, if one can get there. I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. I love that. I totally agree. Yeah, but that's also, I watched an interview with Guthrie Govan, and somebody asked him, I think it was him or something about that, and they said, because, you know, it's kind of like you're either bit, like, you know, it's like you're like, oh, like you're bit with the music bug or you're not. Like some people, you just can't stop, you know. He said that, Guthrie said he thinks there has to be some level of like OCD involved in the people.
Right.
Or something like that, because we just like, I don't know, just get lost forever. And
I don't know. Guthrie is different, man. I know I'm making a lot of stories from Lee, but because he's such a major figure, and he actually, I'm sure that one of Guthrie's songs that's the most famous, I think it's called Fives.
Yeah.
So that song by Guthrie is actually featured on one of Lee's albums that Lee produced.
It's amazing.
It's the 6 String Theory album, right?
Yes.
So I think Lee was actually there when Guthrie recorded it. And some other like legendary guitar player that I can't remember. And someone said to Guthrie after he stopped like recording and just killed it, he was like, man, you're playing so many notes and all of them are right. Like, how much do you practice? And Guthrie just said, I don't know. Like, feels weird to be there. I haven't seen anyone in a long time. So he's kind of like on another level.
But, you know, he also says that he started at like 2 years old. He said he could play a D chord at 2.
I don't doubt it.
So, because his dad played, and, you know, he started too. And it's like the Wootens, like Victor played. He was the bassist before he was born. He was declared the bassist, you know?
Yeah.
By the time he was 8, insane. He was like touring with like
insane.
Curtis Mayfield or somebody. I forget who. But, yeah.
Well, all the greats started so early. Allan Holdsworth started as a kid too, because his dad played piano. So, you know, and his dad played like jazz piano. So there's actually, I think, I was watching some like tribute videos to him, and there's actually a recording of like Allan's dad like teaching young Allan, like, okay, so on this chord you can go to the E flat because it's like the 3rd or whatever, or you can go to the B flat because it's that interval and whatnot. And you hear like Allan speaking back or something, and he's just like acknowledging like the playing over changes being a young kid. So
that's so funny, man.
You know, no wonder the dude was like one of the most amazing improvisers.
Yeah, but he never says that in his interviews. I even saw he came to MI too and talked, and he was like,
sweet.
Yeah, so did Guthrie and many awesome people. But Allan did, and you know, he always says the same. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. every time. He's like, I have no idea.
He definitely does.
He knew when he was a little kid. He just stopped probably caring at like 11 because he already knew it all.
Right. Well, this is kind of what we were talking about earlier as well. You have to like know that information and those concepts and all this, I guess, knowledge so deep,
right,
that it becomes to the point where you don't think about it anymore. And I remember I wanted to get into that after I saw Corey Henry play live. And I remember because I went to both sets that Snarky Puppy was playing back in the days.
Nice.
And they played the same songs, not all of them, but some of them twice on both sets. And Corey took the solo on the same song, right? Mm-hmm. And so he improvised 2 solos that were both equally amazing. And I was just like, how is it possible? You know, maybe when I improvise 1 time out of 10, something great is gonna come out of it. But this dude is coming out great every single time, because I had watched some stuff online before I got to the gig, obviously. So, and it was, you know, in the days where you could approach these guys, and I mean, you can still now, but there would be like a huge line. You know, back in the days, you could really like just go to the bar and ask them questions, because I think it was one of their first gig, if not the first gig in Paris that they were doing. So I asked him about it, and he was just like, man, I don't know. I've been just doing it for so long that now it's just like, I hear in my head the sound and it just plays. And to me, that was impossible, you know, especially coming from a classical background. There has to be some kind of like structure to it. So yeah, I decided that I needed to work on that. And, you know, so taking it slow and making conscious decisions about, you know, scales and notes and fingerings and that kind of stuff, and doing it over and over until it becomes muscle memory, which is kind of like what I mentioned earlier about, you know, you can know 5 different ways to go through a scale, but eventually you gotta pick the one that sounds the best to you and just grind it out, because in this industry, if you want to stand out, you have to be 200% on whatever you're doing. You know, nobody cares you can go through one scales 5 different ways if none of these ways are absolutely killing, you know. But if you know one way that's like completely out of this world and that you can nail it every time, then it starts to become, you know, interesting in the industry, or as a musician too, because eventually those kind of choices will develop your identity, which eventually, I guess, if you follow my logic, will make you kind of a master at your craft, because you will have, you know, I guess, elements in your playing and your musical identity that will stand out from other players, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Steve Vai says that. He says just do what you're good at and cultivate that. That's it. That's what he says he did. I remember telling
definitely.
Yeah, and that's it, you know. Yeah. But I remember telling Sid Jacobs that. Do you know who Sid Jacobs is?
What did he say?
I remember telling that to Sid Jacobs. He didn't like that idea. Do you know who Sid Jacobs is, maybe?
No.
You gotta check him out, man. He's incredible.
Guitar
chord melody jazz dude. Yeah, he like transcribed a bunch of Bill Evans music, wrote it for guitar, for example. But he's like a genius. He was teaching at like 18 in university.
Oh, okay.
He said he went to go apply, and he said he didn't have room for students. So he said, what about teachers? And then the guy didn't like it that he said that. And he said, fine, you can go audition with the guitar teacher. And he said he happened to play like a Bach or some classical piece that guy was working on, and they gave him a job right there. You know, it's crazy. But in his saying, he's saying it's like, be more holistic. Like he wants to be able to play whatever. And anyway, different things. But
I mean, I love this idea though, but is it really doable? Do you ever like invent something on the spot? Like intentionally? I don't think so. You know, you always, or maybe I'm totally wrong, but I feel like even when you're improvising, you're always improvising something you've heard more or less before, something you've played more or less before, you know? I mean, I know that when I am improvising, I'm in no ways I wouldn't consider myself a great improviser, although I can improvise, but I don't feel like it's always like blank canvas and just like freestyling.
Yeah.
There's always some kind of structure. There's always some kind of, you know, technique. There's always devices and licks, even though you can, you know, apply variations to it and, you know, learn a whole bunch of methods and approaches to improvisation to make them original. I don't think it's possible to be a really like freestyling like from nowhere. I don't even like imagine how that would be possible. Although if that is ever possible, if some people can do it, then it's fucking amazing.
Sure. Well, you've definitely cultivated your own sound, and it's really awesome, really amazing.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you guys don't know Kaspar's music, make sure to check it out, dig in as much as you can. Where can people find you? And are you offering lessons or album sales, or like what can
people... So there's like a whole bunch of things out there. Well, first of all, there's my website, KasparJalily.com. You can find a whole bunch of information about what I'm doing and what I have available. I teach lessons online via Skype. I have pre-recorded lessons if you don't have the money or the time to, you know, real-time lessons on Skype. You know, I sell presets, I sell sample licenses for producers. I have a plugin available. I've studied music business, so I've always kind of made it a goal for myself to have kind of a wide range of products for every actor of the music industry to kind of pick from. Which is also something that, especially in Europe, not a lot of musicians do. And that I think, especially in these times, with the virus going on and no gigs being, no gigs happening at all, basically, you know, you got to find ways to make money as a musician. And man, there are so many ways you can make a living being a musician. And so many of these ways are so slept on. So yeah, so to come back to the question, yeah, just go to my website, and whoever, you know, whatever you do in the music industry, there's something that you might be interested in.
Awesome, man. Cool. That's it. I guess one more thing is that if you have any further advice you would want to give any musicians out there, you know, what would that be?
So I would say, especially with all the social media and all like the YouTube content and all that stuff that's absolutely amazing that we have access to and that we're kind of fluent with, it's so easy to be overwhelmed with, you know, pressure, especially as a professional musician, that you feel that you have to be at that level to be relevant in your field. And that's something that I have struggled with for a long time. And first of all, you know, you don't have, I guess only the most amazing guys will stand out on YouTube and, you know, social media in general. You're seeing the tip of the iceberg, really like the top guys most of the time. And it's, you know, it's cool. You don't have to be Jacob Collier to be a relevant musician, although Jacob is, you know, absolutely amazing. But this is something that I've struggled with for a long time. I felt that I needed to be as killing, as, you know, as skilled as all the guys that I was seeing all the time on YouTube and all that stuff to be relevant. And you really don't. So that's the first thing, I guess. And the second thing would be, you don't have to be good at everything to be relevant. For so many years, I felt that, okay, I have to be good at, and this is also the music programs will kind of make you feel this way, especially the like modern music programs. They would make you feel like you have to be good at jazz, you have to be good at rock, you have to be good at whatever, and, you know, all the different styles. And the thing is, and we were talking about this earlier, don't put pressure on yourself that you wouldn't put on your heroes. For example, you wouldn't expect someone like Slash to be absolutely killing at a jazz gig, but that wouldn't take away anything of like his amazing musicianship or career. So don't ask yourself to be good at so many different things where you wouldn't even ask, you know, that versatility and that that amount of skill from your own idols, you know. And this is something that really kind of helped me find, you know, my own sound and also just be a happier musician, if that makes sense. Just like chill and say, okay, you don't have to know every jazz standard that's out there to be a relevant musician, especially if you didn't go to jazz school. Or you don't have to play rock like Eric Johnson to be a relevant player and be able to, you know all the standards at the same time, because there's only, I don't know, maybe only 0.1% of jazz players can play rock like for a living or proficiently, or you know what I'm saying. So don't be too hard on yourself, as in, you know, what you should be practicing. Just practice the things that you really like and the things that are useful for your own growth, and that's pretty much it, you know. Then do some other stuff, learn other instruments, learn production, learn business, or, you know, it's, I feel like don't, a lot of guys start practicing and kind of imposing practice regime and routines on themselves that are just impossible. And that's what I've seen also a lot, like teaching. I've taught a lot of guys that were out of Berkeley and that were with so many amazing jazz and rock and, you know, whatever world music teacher, that they felt that they had to shed everything, and eventually they never focused on anything that they really like. It always, their entire practice routine was just like work, like I need to be better at that, and not like, let's actually play this piece that I really like and see what I can do with it. So I guess, yeah, practice more the things you like than the thing you feel like you should practice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I can relate. I totally understand that. I went to school, had to play 1,000 standards that I didn't actually like, and finally when it was done, I'm happy I did it though. Now I just play my original music or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's never lost. You know? It's never like lost to practice, but the thing is, man, there's limited time as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So might as well focus on the things you really like, and make something out of them, you know. And I don't know.
There's totally agree.
There's only a few people that would like things that are the complete opposite of the guitar spectrum, you know. I mean, some people do. Personally, I don't. But like, again, don't impose practice routines and stuff that are just impossible to reach. Especially when it comes to guitar, I feel like the way the standard of guitar playing is right now is, and no disrespect to our, you know, elders and the other generations, but the standard of playing guitar right now, if you want to be a working musician or, you know, bring something new to the guitar world, you got to be so much better than 20 years ago. You know, no disrespect, but like, and this is something that Lee was talking about, because obviously he saw all the generations coming up, and he's been doing this contest, this international guitar contest, every 2 or 3 years. So he has seen like the rising stars of guitar come play for him, and he told us that every year is just like going up. Like the year I did the Lee Ritenour competition, there was this guy that was playing note for note, feel for feel, and I'm not kidding, Fives by Guthrie Govan, like every lick, everything. He had like a Kemper profile of Guthrie, so if you close your eye, it was Guthrie playing. I'm not kidding. He was just like crazy, and the dude was like 18 years old or something ridiculous like that. So the standard is just rising. So focus on what you really like, get good at it. And I guess this is, you know, how, I guess at least one way to be a matured and established and happy musician, I guess.
Awesome, man. All right, dude. Thank you so much. Everybody dig into his music, check his site, get everything. You're going to love it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.